Hey Tom, welcome to Formlabs. We're going to take a tour today and show you some of our printers and facilities and capabilities here, and look at what it takes to build some 3D printers.
Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to having a tour around.
Let's get into it.
This is our R&D shop. It's about 2,600 square feet of R&D space, and this is kind of where a lot of our key hardware concepts were first prototyped at Formlabs. So the machine shop is really like a core part of the way that we build hardware at Formlabs. It's also the largest shared space in the company, where anyone can come in, learn how to use equipment, get access to manufacturing tools, and really make work on a very high level. This corner is for mostly 2D work. We've got a laser cutter and 2 water jets, a pretty large one, and then a smaller Proto Max that's just 12 by 12.
This is cutting like 1/2 inch aluminum, but it'll do this to steel as well. Can do what, like 1 or 2 inches of steel?
About, yeah, 2 inches max.
Leaves a really interesting surface finish.
Yeah, kind of sandblasted, because it's really cutting with sand, not water.
Yeah,
There's sand in the stream.
So it'll cut anything softer than garnet. So you can check it out through here. We're machining a really big part right now. But this is really called the vertical machining center, right? It's got full 3-axis movement. It's got a really big work envelope and a 30-tool changer. We've got a really big lathe. This is awesome for turning big parts, making really precise turn parts. We use this pretty often. Yeah, so this is our Tormach CNC machine. This is a smaller CNC that we actually got first. And this is kind of our entrance into having a really fully equipped machine in the shop. The type of shop, they describe it as a high mix, low volume, right? But sometimes we do bigger runs of 100 to 200 things, but most of the time it's like 4 or 5 parts.
So is this a tapping machine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I've seen these before.
Yeah, so this is our metrology area where we take all sorts of things from Formlabs, from test prints to vendor parts, and we come in and inspect them for quality. So we have a few different pieces of equipment in this room that really just take very accurate measurements down to maybe like 10 microns or so and check parts for accuracy.
This is Sharon, who leads our materials development team.
Nice to meet you.
She's going to show us around.
All right, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. All right, so this is the beginning of our lab space. We built a space actually during COVID to expand our capabilities in materials development, mostly for the SLA resin formulation. Here's our chemical storage room. We have roughly 2,000 to 3,000 chemicals that we use into coming up with our formulations. And so this is structured in 6 individual lab units. We named it after famous scientists from A to F. So each lab has a hood and different development projects ongoing. This is lab A. We have some of the dry chambers for some of the more unique chemicals when you need to be in an inner environment and or dry environment for printing. We set up each lab with like a type of work that we do so that it's easier for people to collaborate. And so when we have to do some sort of when we have to do synthesis, sometimes we make our own oligomers. It's easy to have it all happening in the same hood. This hood is more black for the light because these are more UV sensitive components. And so we orange filmed it. We do all of our filler work here, and so we develop ceramic. We have a lot of highly filled materials, and so we dedicated this hood for all the high loading filler work, so all the filler gets to stay in the same hood. Then we also do environmental testing here. This is loud, so it's off right now. Lab D hosts a lot of the analytical equipment that we use. So we have particle size analyzer. Basically tells you how the particles distribution is. We use a lot actually for the SLS powder. We have a GPC that tells you, molecular impurity of a chemical. We have a GC mass spec as well, help us identify specific chemicals coming out of different raw materials. And then we have FTIR here.
Wow. This is beyond all my knowledge of chemicals.
Basically, a lot of stuff to tell you what is in a thing that you've made, because you can mix stuff up and then cure it and changes, and you don't always know what you have anymore.
This is one of our general purpose lab that, if you see in the hood right now, is set up for some of the hardware film lamination as well. So we do have a cell lab, which is BL1. We do our internal cytotoxicity testing. It's a very good tools for us to screen through a lot of formulation, understanding what components will change the biocompatibility of the formulation of the end cured parts. Then we also do like internally developed testing. That's like a creep testing that we came up with, basically a force jig in water to look at our material in water, elevated temperature, how it creeps. That's important for a lot of the dental application. We are a medical device company. This farm is for all the biocompatible materials because the printer has to be maintained and calibrated at a certain frequency to meet the regulatory requirements. You see they all have a little sticker, so this farm is maintained separately for all the biocompatible material development.
These are the form dogs. These are people's dogs, and we have an awesome photographer on staff, so we had some free time, photographed everyone's dogs.
All the dogs that have visited the office? Or?
Yeah, probably not all of them, but many of them. Some are regulars. These are fun, fully printed Godzilla and King Kong, and they were like a hackathon project. So we do a hackathon every year where some people build stuff that could be new products, and some people just build fun stuff like this. So this is materials measurement lab where we've got some of our fanciest equipment for figuring out the material properties of the things we make.
Welcome to our instrument lab. I'm Adam Quintanilla. I'm a material scientist, been here 6 years. This is where we take most, if not all, of our measurements for the materials that we developed I think you just came from the materials lab, so it starts with the formulation up there, quickly moves to the printer, but really right after that, we want to know what's the mechanical properties, how close did we get, and then from there, what iterations we need to make to the formulations. Tensile testing is our biggest deal. We actually have 3 tensile testers, 2 that are like manual. They also double as flex testing. If you look at like sort of the top jig there, it can like move up and do flex testing that way. And then we do so much of that testing that we actually recently got this new unit that does it automatically for us. So sort of set it and forget it. Which has actually been a joy to have. It means you can run 15 samples in an hour and you don't even have to touch it, other than like measuring it initially. We also care about like how much of a punch can our material take. We have multiple methods of impact testing. We have stuff for like thin materials like this, where we have a Gardner impact tester where we essentially just lift a weight to a certain height that has graduations on it, goes on, and we go until we see to failure. We always have this ready to go, kind of designed by one of our engineers, goes in, that reads an angle for us, and we can translate that angle into an energy. So that's kind of like a lot of our mechanical testing that's like looking at the physical object specifically, but we also have more of the intangible things such as sort of the temperature profiles. We have a DSC that is used primarily by our fuse team for looking at how the melt and recrystallization values for our fuse powders are and what that means for process printability down the road. And so this is used to sort of look at what those temperatures happen at and what sort of like hysteresis they might have around that. This essentially takes a bar, which is already loaded in here, vibrates it at a certain frequency, and then ramps up temperature from anywhere from as low as however low our liquid nitrogen doer can go down to as high as like 200-300 degrees. Gives us a good sense of what the glass transition temperature, as well as like at what points do these materials that we design start to soften and have like any sort of like strain dependencies on temperature.
So now we're gonna go into our SLS materials print farm. We've got a lot of Fuse Ones here where we're testing out new materials and refining print settings. Let's go take a look.
Sounds good.
I'm Chris Omosinski. I'm one of our material scientists here. This is our SLS material development space. So in here we have 25 different Fuse 1 Plus systems. We have a nitrogen generator to support 8 printers with nitrogen testing. The way we kind of use this space is for a number of different print process and material development improvements. So anytime we're dealing with a new powder formulation, anytime we're dealing with a powder change or print settings change, that development happens right here, where we'll go all the way from sort of beginning evaluation of a material's printability all the way up to final print settings a customer might use. And so the way we kind of have it split up, we'll split it up into a bank of printers used for new settings development, material development and print process development here, and then down there is kind of settings optimization for any new settings improvement that a customer might be looking for. So one of the things we do when we're either trying to improve a setting or evaluate a new material is we'll do thermal imaging of our print bed. So we've got a FLIR setup here to basically take an image of the camera and kind of identify, are there any hot or cold spots within the bed that we have to adjust a setting to correct for it. You want the bed as uniform as possible. You want to reduce the thermal gradients in the build in an SLS process. This is one of the ways that we can identify what gradients exist. This is an image after the print's cooled down, but you can imagine every layer you would get a frame that includes hot spots related to lasing, related to any sort of heater set point you're operating with. And then we'll take that data and try to optimize it.
This is our print farm. We have about 150 printers in here across the Form 3, Form 3L, Form 4, and Form 4L. This is our main table. This is a very active workspace, lots of resin, lots of prints. On average, I'd say during the Form 4 and Form 4L development, we've been going between anywhere 75 to 125 liters per week of resin, and just really printing. How can you gain confidence and reliability? You print. We do all of our bed testing, or benchtop testing, to show the printers are reliable, how the print performs. But the way you test the system is you use the system. So we are printing edge cases, custom models that have been shared with us, and application-specific prints that our product team has helped deliver to us, so that we're doing a wide range of models. Our goal is to print something that, print one of everything that a customer would print, which we know is impossible. So we do try and cover as wide a range as possible with our model selection, as guided by users and product development people.
Yeah, because I suppose you can just drop any part into preform, can't you? And just click go if you wanted to.
Yeah, and our goal here is to allow you to do that. Yeah. You shouldn't have to think about your orientation. You shouldn't have to think about, will my part come out? You should put it in and it comes out as you want it.
Cool. Well, Tom, thank you for coming on the tour.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. It's a whole different work process of what I do at home. So seeing your development of all the products is really cool. Thank you very much for having me.